Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the bluest of blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, last night, we had episode number 1 of Hard Knocks in-season NFC East on HBO Max. Every week, they'll have an episode at 9 o'clock p.m. dropped. You're going to get the full breakdown and recap of how, I feel and the rest of the Commanders Kings feel over on the Commanders Kings channel. We did that last night. We're going to do that for all the future episodes as well. So you're not going to get me talking about Hard Knocks here on this channel very often unless the spirit hits me. It's got to be some kind of incredible episode where me talking about it on the Commanders Kings recap isn't enough. And so we won't be doing this too often here, but I do want to talk about episode 1 in particular. Obviously, the Commanders weren't a main character, and I talked about that yesterday. We know because of the records, Dallas having 2 games in 4 days and winning both of them against the 2 teams that represented their respective conferences in the Super Bowl, Eagles having 2 games in 5 days and losing both of those games, they were going to be the main storylines in this first episode. And so roughly out of a 52-minute episode, the Commanders probably had about 10 minutes or so, roughly. But that was to be expected. But the 10 minutes I thought were impactful. It was nice to see Tavita Pritchard get some love on his way out. And also the quote from Dan Quinn, I thought was super powerful. I thought it was an impactful quote, one that I've talked about several times today. And we're going to talk about it again here because Dan Quinn also referenced it in his press conference today, which we will talk about here in a bit. But to make a long story short, Dan Quinn addressed the team after the loss to the Denver Broncos. It was a tough, hard-fought game. We talked about this team leaving it all out on the line. And they were, dejected as you would be after a tough game like that. And you had an opportunity to win. And literally a batted ball prevented you from snapping a 6-game losing streak. And so he addressed the team in the post-game locker room and he said to them, "We lost the game, but we are not lost anymore." And in the moment when I've heard that, I was like, wow, that's a bar. And that one really resonated with me. And if you know, right? And what he meant by that, if you didn't catch that bar, that one went over your head, is you got to go back in the timeline a bit. And if you recall, we talked about this it was probably over a month ago. He said this at his press conference. He talked about this team, needing to get back on track and being off course and that they needed to find their GPS. And he talked about, and he referenced a Navy SEAL being underwater and how being off just centimeters can put them off course and how important it is to stay on track. And he's like, we got to find our way back to, who we are, essentially, is what he said. And this was over a month ago. And we really hadn't found who we are. And I've been talking about this all season, the lack of an identity. Last year, you could hang your hat on 2 things with this team every week, and it didn't matter who the opponent was. One, we were going to play sound special teams, and I still feel like that is something you can hang your hat on with this team. Our special teams unit, coverage-wise, has been excellent since Larry Izzo has taken over the special teams unit. So I think that's something that you can still hang your hat on this season as well. But last season, no matter what the circumstances were, no matter who the opponent was, no matter what the defense was doing, you knew that the offense was going to show up. They were going to possess the football. They were going to convert third downs. If they didn't convert on third downs, they were going to convert on fourth downs. They were going to be aggressive. They were going to attack opponents. They were going to keep their foot on the gas pedal. They were going to score points. They were going to win time of possession. And they were going to give this team a chance whether or not the defense was good in that particular game. The offense was going to give us a fighting chance. You knew you could count on that. That was our identity. We were going to be aggressive, and we were going to be hard to stop offensively. We really don't have an identity or haven't had one this season. The offense hasn't been aggressive, and DQ, for that matter, hasn't been consistent with his aggressiveness. This offense hasn't sustained drives. We've sucked on time of possession because we can't convert on third downs. We can't overcome adversity. Last year, it didn't matter. It could be 2nd and 25. We all thought we were going to convert that 2nd and 25. You give us 2 plays to get 25 yards last year, it was going to happen. This year, we can't overcome 3rd and 12, let alone 2nd and 25. So it's been so tough this season to get into any kind of rhythm offensively, because any little mistake, any little, diversion from staying on course, and the offense is derailed and we're punting the football or we're turning it over. Things that we didn't do last year at a high clip. We didn't turn the ball over a ton last year. We weren't generating turnovers, but we weren't giving them away either. And so when DQ said we lost the game, but we aren't lost anymore, it signified that we found our identity. We reestablished who we are, how we get down. The week of practice DQ talked about in his press conference today was one of the best of the season. He talked about everything that they did, from the finite details of, executing in winning time moments, which they did in this game, right? The only thing they didn't do was get the 2-point conversion over Nick Bonito's hand, right? The field goal at the end of regulation, getting all that stuff, lined up so we didn't have a penalty that negated an opportunity, using your timeouts correctly. We did all of that stuff right in this game. For the first time, it felt like all season long. For the first time in a long time, we didn't turn the ball over, right? Like that, Marcus threw an interception, so I take that back. Marcus did throw an interception, but it was early, and it wasn't as costly as it probably should have been, but it did take points off the board, and it can't happen. But we produced the turnover. We won time of possession. We were able to have our best third down performance of the season. We continue to be hot in the red zone. We overcame adversity. We overcame a 3rd and 25. We overcame a holding penalty from Josh Connolly Jr. On the very next play, we went and got the first down and got down inside the 5-yard line, down to the 1. Every obstacle that was put in front of this team, they overcame, except for the 2-point conversion at the end of the game. And so, to me, this Denver Broncos performance was needed. And that quote from Dan Quinn shows just how important of a game that Broncos game was. Not because of the result. DQ made sure and has been very adamant throughout this process that we are not okay with the result. It's okay to take positives from a loss. So there's no moral victory. We're not happy because we played well, but we lost. We're happy that we played well. Now it needs to equate to winning. But these are the steps that need to be taken, and this is who we are, and this is what we have to be moving forward. And that is what that quote signified to me, that this is the commander standard. This is how we operate. This is how we pay attention to the little details that have killed us all season long. You get enough of the little details not being followed and not being executed, and they add up to big problems. And that has been one of the things that this team hasn't done well this season, is pay attention to the granular details. From Zach Ertz falling forward and having false start penalties, to Josh Connolly Jr. having holding penalties, to this team turning over the football, to drop passes, etc., etc. We've had so many mistakes, so many things that have derailed drives, that have killed games, missed field goals, missed opportunities at points because of a penalty, because of poor play calling, because of poor execution. All of those things were eliminated on Sunday, for the most part. Still far from perfect. But we look a lot more like the team that we thought we were going to be this season, and we look like the team that had an identity. Let's hope that this is the start of this team finishing the season strong, whether it's a win or not. I know some of you don't care. Some of you would prefer that they lose games. I am not one of those fans, but that's fine. We don't have to agree on the methodology. We all want the same thing. Our journeys and paths to get there may be different, but we all want the same thing. We all want this team to win. We may get there differently, but the goal still remains the same. I just want to see this team perform at a high level. I want these games down the stretch to mean something, right? We can't go to the playoffs, and we're not going to have a winning record this season. But that game on a Saturday at 5 o'clock in late December when the Eagles come here, and yes, it's going to be a road game. You saw the Broncos fans chanting, "Let's go Broncos." That's the Denver Broncos that came in here and was making noise. What do you think is going to happen when Dallas shows up on Christmas or when Philadelphia shows up on a Saturday late in the season? You're damn right they're going to take over the stadium. I'm expecting that. That's okay. I still want those games because Dallas is going to be playing for something more likely than not. And if they're not, I want to be the one that officially ends them. Philadelphia is definitely going to be playing for something, whether that's home field advantage throughout and the number 1 seed, looking to stave off Dallas in the division, whatever the case may be. I want to hurt them. And you got to be playing good football and have some sort of momentum going into those games if that's what you're looking to accomplish. And we got to start standing for something. You don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. We have to get back to establishing who we are. And that quote from Dan Quinn felt like him saying that that's who we are. That's what we stand for. That's the product that we should be putting on the field every week. You do that, you're going to win a lot more games than you lose. And I agree with that. So that was, I thought, a powerful quote on an episode that I thought was well done, that we weren't necessarily a huge part of, which was to be expected once again. But as these episodes continue to go by, I think this next week's episode going to be a lot like this week's episode in terms of our involvement. Now, I will say the Giants are on a bye week, so I think that might minimize their involvement just a tad bit, and maybe that extends how much TV time and screen time we get. But ultimately, week 15, when the Giants come off their bye and host the Commanders, that's when I think you start to see the Commanders not necessarily take front and center, but they're going to become more of a main character in this series because they're going to be playing an NFC East opponent every single week the remainder of the season. And they spotlight those games on those episodes when they happen. So just like they did Eagles Cowboys, right? They spent the first probably 10 minutes of the show on that particular game, or at least the first 5 to 7 minutes of the show on that game, and rightfully so. So anyway, I digress. Let's get to in other news, where we heard from DQ today, and we're going to react to what he had to say. But before we do that, let's take a look at the injury report for both teams. You start with the good guys. Zach Ertz rest. I'm going to save Drake Jackson because I got a little bit to say about that. Javon Kinlaw back, did not participate in practice today. Von Miller rest. Laramie Tunsil rest. So again, we always take this first initial Wednesday injury report with a grain of salt because there's going to be names added to this list that aren't necessarily real injuries, right? Non-injury related rest guys, veterans. Bobby Wagner is not among them, though. So this is interesting because Bobby does not miss practice. So him not being out there is somewhat of a bit of news. Jaden Daniels, left elbow, limited, which is what we saw all of last week. Frankie Louvu's shoulder, limited. Noah Brown, groin and knee, full. And Tyler Ott, who missed the game due to an illness, full participant on the injury report with his back. So you remove Ertz, Miller, and Tunsil, and now you have Drake Jackson, Javon Kinlaw, Bobby Wagner, Jaden Daniels, Frankie Louvu, Noah Brown, and Tyler Ott. I think the two that really stick out to me are Wagner and or three is Wagner, Kinlaw, and Drake Jackson. So I'm not too concerned about Javon Kinlaw right now. Tomorrow, if he doesn't practice, then you've got my attention. Drake Jackson, on the other hand, here's a guy that's got his 21-day window open. He should be practicing in full every single day. There shouldn't be any issues with him. And here we are looking at knee and groin and him not practicing on a Wednesday. Am I concerned? Yes, I am. To what extent? Let's call it 30% concern right now. Like that, and that's pretty significant for me on a Wednesday. Generally, if a guy likes Noah Brown, for instance, take Noah Brown, he also has his 21-day window open, but he was a full participant today because generally when you're in that 21-day window, they feel like you're ready to go in terms of practicing, and you should be able to practice in full every day while you're in that window with no setbacks. That's the hope. For us to have come off of a bye, for Drake Jackson to have not played yet, him to start on IR, for him to have practiced really each of the last 2 weeks. Remember, he started his window over in Madrid during that week of practice. He practiced last week. He had the whole bye week. Then he had last week's practice. And now you're showing up on the injury report with a knee and groin and you don't practice. Yes, I'm concerned. Will we ever see this guy? I don't know. Like, I'm not upset because you can't miss what you've never had. We don't know if Drake Jackson can even play. The man hasn't played football since like 2020, I don't know, 2023, maybe 2024. I don't know the last time he's played football. So I'm not upset. I'm just like a bit concerned. Like, what's going on here? Is this a different injury? Is this the one that you've been out for? Is this a precautionary measure that they're taking? And which they shouldn't be. If you're in the window, you should be fine. So I am concerned about Drake Jackson because I do want to see him. He's one of those guys that you're looking to see if he can be a part of the solution and help mitigate some of the issues that we have that we're going to have to address in the offseason. If you've got one more young defensive end to add to the mix, great. That's one less defensive end you need in free agency and the draft. It's not going to stop you from drafting or signing guys in the offseason, but it is going to allow you to not need 2 or 3. Right now, we need a bare minimum 2 defensive ends. Probably need 3 if Drake Jackson doesn't work out. Be nice to get him on the field and get a large sample size. It feels like he's going to miss this game too. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Kinlaw, not as concerned. We'll see what tomorrow looks like for him. And Wagner, again, not really concerned with him either. Just shocked to see him here as a DMP because it doesn't really matter what the situation is. Bobby Wagner's out there. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Now we transition to the ops. And you get just a laundry list of injuries here for the Minnesota Vikings. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 injuries. But much like us, they've got some NRIs, right? Non-injury related guys, Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Harrison Smith, just a bunch of veterans that they're giving a Wednesday off to. So no big deal there. So this list is really 12 guys long. It's still a pretty long list. But if you look at the list, bunch of limiteds, a few or a couple fulls, and just 2 DMPs. So for the most part, everybody on this list is going to play on Sunday. So you shouldn't really be too intrigued by this list. Donovan Jackson, the rookie offensive guard, is the one guy that you should look at and say, okay, if he doesn't go, that should help up front for us. Levi Drake Rodriguez is a guy that can produce problems up front as a run defender, get in the backfield a little bit. And if he can't go, that'll help our offensive line. But our offensive line should be fine against Minnesota's front. Now, that's not to say that Minnesota doesn't have guys that present problems, because they do. Obviously, Jonathan Grenard and Andrew Van Ginkel are 2 guys that can really produce problems. So, and then Jonathan Allen, our old friend, is a guy that we know can get up the field and create some havoc. So they've got some guys, but all in all, this is a very harmless injury report. And I want you to take a look all the way at the bottom. J.J. McCarthy, who missed last week's game in Week 13 versus the Seahawks with a concussion, practiced in full today, which kind of indicates that he'll be back this week. And so we won't get the benefit of Max Brosmer being out on the field, the rookie out of where did Max Brosmer go to school? Jesus, I remember Brosmer in college, and now I can't think of what school he went to. But we won't get the benefit of facing Max Brosmer. So JJ McCarthy, it will be on Sunday, and the question then becomes, will he be facing one of his counterparts in that 2024 NFL draft in the first round, in Jaden Daniels? Only time will tell. I'm going to tell you how I feel about that a little bit later on in the show, but we will talk about that here in a second. So let's get to DQ's press conference. He started his press conference out by talking about the resilience of the team, which I talked about pretty much all this week. I talked about it again today. Like that was the thing that probably impressed me the most after the offensive line's play, along with Marcus Mariota and just Terry being back and the impact that he had, was the resilience of this team and their ability to overcome adversity at just about every turn in this game. There were several situations where you could have easily seen this team, fold the tent, not have success, struggle, and they didn't do that. So he talked about not letting Sunday affect Wednesday. Obviously you don't get the win. It's disappointing, can be dejecting, but you got to come out on Wednesday, reset the deck, and get after it again and not let one loss turn into two. And then he said last week was one of the best practices of the season. And he talked about that on Hard Knocks, where he, was so giddy about the amount of guys that were out there. And, Terry catching a deep ball at practice, he was so elated. So you could tell that it meant a lot to be able to have guys be on the field and play. So he talked about all of that in the beginning of his press conference. Then he opened the floor to questions, and he was asked about whether he loved the play calling aspect of, taking over the DC responsibilities, and has it given him energy. He said no on the energy, but he does love play calling on Sundays. So basically what he said, and I think we got to start reading into all of the things about DQ in these press conferences when he talks about play calling. I think it is important now that we really hone in on what's being said, because he's giving us clues as to how he feels. And he talked about not loving the Monday through Saturday aspect of the play calling responsibilities, like having to prepare. He doesn't hate it, but it's not his favorite thing. It's very time consuming, right? Which could lead him to saying, I want somebody else to do this shit. But what could overshadow all of that and circumvent that is the fact that he loves calling plays on Sundays. And he basically said, man, I love calling these plays. This shit is excellent. It's the best. But I don't love all of the preparation that it entails. So something else, but he's definitely leaning on the staff. He talked about that, and they're helping him out with those responsibilities. And you get to the offseason, and they may be able to come up with an even better, more efficient way of, putting game plans in place that limits his ability, limits his, his involvement in that, and then gives him time, frees him up to be able to do more things. And then you get to Sunday and he starts to call the plays. So we'll see. I talked about the quote already. That was something that Nikki Javala asked him about at the press conference, which you expected someone to ask him about, because it was such an impactful quote. It was one of the highlights of the Commanders portion of Hard Knocks episode 1. And he basically said, it was us reestablishing who we are. It was us finding our identity. It's the way we need to play moving forward, and it's who we need to be. We didn't set rules. We set standards, right? This isn't something that you follow. This is who you are, right? So, like, DQ was preaching. He was dropping some bars. Like, he was spitting some shit today. He was asked the question, does this time matter for evaluation for next year? And he was like, yeah, you're damn right it does. You know, again, we always talk about the true test of a person, of an individual, is what do you do in times of adversity? It's easy when shit's going well for everybody. Like last year, this time, it's easy to be a fan of this team, right? Where are you at right now? What you up to right now? This is when we really test your true fandom. You're 3-9. You've lost 7 games in a row. It sucks. You had expectations this year. Where you at right now? It's easy to be a fan when you're riding a 10-5 record going into week 14. Last year, I think we were about to play the Tennessee Titans, or maybe we had just beat the Titans in week 13, snapped the losing streak. We were heading into our bye week at 8-5, I believe, last year. So you come off the bye, you beat New Orleans. After that, you beat Philadelphia. After that, you beat Atlanta. After that, you beat Dallas. You go to the playoffs riding a 5-game win streak at 12-5. It's easy to be a fan then. Easy to be a fan at 7-2 last year to start the season off. Easy to be a fan when you beat Tampa Bay in the wild card weekend. Where you at now after your 7th straight loss? Same thing with evaluating the players on this roster. Easy to be up when you're out here kicking ass and taking names and shit's going well and everyone's patting you on the back and telling you how great you are. What happens when either no one's paying attention to you because you suck ass, or they're telling you that you suck ass and the record reflects that you suck ass? What then? Are you going to give maximum effort? Are you going to go out there and play like the team is 8-3 instead of 3-8, or now 3-9? Or are you gonna mail it in? And they're figuring out who's who. He brought up, as he always does. I know this would drive Rio crazy, but he brought up Jeremy Reeves. That's his favorite player on this team. You do know that, right? DQ's favorite player on this team is Jeremy Reeves. He brought up Jeremy Reeves, and he brought up Zach Ertz, 2 veteran players that they bring it every day. He's like, Zach Ertz is one of the leading tight end leading tight ends in the league in pass receptions in NFL history, and yet he's going to be on a jugs machine like he's a second-year player, right? Optimism for Noah Brown. He said his optimism is in the green, meaning it is high. As a fan, I'm like, okay, cool. If he plays, great. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. If he doesn't, it's just like normal for us. You can't miss something that you've rarely or never had. That's pretty much where we are with Noah Brown. So we're not holding our breath. We're not anticipating his return. If he shows up, cool. What's up, Noah? If he doesn't, it's to be expected at this point. But DQ sounds like really optimistic that Noah Brown's going to play this week. We'll see. Then someone asked him a question about, basically asked him the Brian Orakpo moral victory question. Does this team competing against Denver, one of the best teams in football, give you the confidence that you can compete against anybody in the league? But get the fuck out of here with that bullshit ass question. The hell is wrong with you? That's the type of shit that you go, bro, really? That you had time to come up with a whole ass question, and that's the best shit you could come up with is, hey, you just went toe-to-toe. That's the Brian Orakpo. We just went toe-to-toe with Seattle. We could beat anybody. Shut up. Shut up. You just played against a Denver Broncos team that has barely escaped. Like, they could easily be 3-9 just like us. The ball has bounced their way. They found ways to win games in these close one-score contests. And so instead of them being 3-9 like us, they're 10-2. Make no mistake about it. Denver's no world beater. Their defense is really good. Their offense leaves a lot to be desired. And so, we just want to play well. We don't give a shit that it was against Denver. It could have been against Minnesota this upcoming week. It could have been, it could be against Minnesota this coming week. It could be, could have been against Miami the week prior. It could have been against Seattle. We don't really give a shit who the opponent is. You just want to play well. That's the standard. Not because it's Denver. You want to play well every week. And no, not because you competed at a high level against Denver. We can beat anybody. That's garbage. So he shut that down really quickly. Anyway, improvement of Josh Connolly Jr. He talked about that, and he said this was his best game as a Commander. So I concur. We talked about that already. We think that Josh Connolly Jr. played really well, and he talked about Connolly playing in college this time last year, and the fact that he probably would see edge from Ohio State, and that would be the first guy that he's seen at an elite level, in 3 weeks, because as you know, in college, you're not playing against elite players every single week, but you get an elite guy this week, and then you get a guy that probably won't be playing on Sundays for the next 2-3 weeks, and then you'll see another one of those guys. Now you're playing Penn State, so you're seeing another elite edge rusher. 3 weeks later, you might see a guy from Michigan, and then another 2 weeks down the road, you may see a guy from Ohio State, right? But you're not seeing those guys every single week. In the NFL, you're seeing NFL caliber players every single week. And in certain cases, like at the beginning of the season, you're seeing elite pass rushers every single week. And he's really grown from the first week of the season all the way to week 14, heading into the game against the Vikings. He's going to see another elite pass rusher in Jonathan Grenard. And, DQ said, man, the growth that they've seen from him has been tremendous. And he talked to Josh Connolly and made the joke about him, at this time last year, probably preparing for Ohio State or some, team in college. And he said it's hard to really gauge how much improvement that is taking place while you're in the season, but it has taken place for him. And I'm actually proud of Josh Connolly Jr.'s improvement. He's starting to look the part of a first-round pick. And I told you how excited I was about the offensive line on Sunday. If they're going to play like that moving forward, that is going to be one of the pillars of this team moving forward. And so Connolly is a huge part of that, because if you've got bookend tackles in this league, you've got the makings of a dominant offensive line. And by them investing the way that they did last season for the tackle position, knowing that they had a commodity in Jaden Daniels and wanting to protect him by trading for Tunzel and then spending a first-round pick on Josh Connolly Jr., they've effectively built potentially the makings of a bully up front. And that's what you want in this league. It starts in the trenches. And on the offensive side, it feels like we've gotten it. And Josh Connolly Jr. is a big part of that. So Treylon Burks, he was asked about him. Same thing he's been saying. He's a tremendous competitor, talked about his finger. He was supposed to miss more time. He wasn't having any of it. He put a stent on it, taped it up, and that was the hand that he made the one-hand catch with. So they just feel like this guy has a chance to be a part of this team moving forward. And he played really well on Sunday once again. And every time he's played this season in a Commander's uniform, we've walked away impressed and intrigued and wanting to see more. He talked about why it's important to finish the season strong. I think this was a Lake question where Lake basically said, look, the fan base pretty much is looking towards next year. Why is it important for you guys to finish the season off strong? And he basically said, because we have a standard, because we're building habits. This is who we are. This is what we represent. This is what it's supposed to look like. But he also talked about the importance of establishing that identity and holding true to it. And that's when he made the reference to, we don't have rules, we have standards. We don't have things you follow. We have ways that you conduct yourself every time. And so it is important. That's why I'm a big proponent of winning. He's like, everybody that's here this year isn't going to be here next year. But for the guys that are here next year, it's important for them to see what it means to be a Commander and how to conduct yourself in the building on a daily basis, and what it means to go out there, put the uniform on, and compete at a level that is satisfactory and up to the standard. And I think that's important because contrary to popular belief, I know we're going to move on from a lot of these guys after the season. But there are going to be a lot of guys that are still here. And what you want to be able to show is that this is how we get down. This is how we play Commanders football. And if you don't have something that you can hold your hat on, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything, right? He talked about the defensive changes and why we've seen improvements. He said we play a lot of zone, so guys get the key quarterback's eyes. He talked about streamlining everything, kind of making everything uniform, taking a lot of the extra, nuances to the defense, adjustments, checks, things of that nature out of the mix. And then he said consistency, right? They watered the defense down to make it a lot more digestible so guys could play faster. But then they're running a lot of the same concepts over and over again. You keep doing things over and over again. They become familiar to you. You don't have to think you can play faster, that sort of thing. That's not sustainable, first and foremost. This is not 2012. You can't play cover 3 like the Seahawks used to with the Legion of Boom and kick ass every week. You got to switch things up. So this is sustainable for now, but eventually he's going to have to add those checks back in. You're going to have to be more multiple. You're going to have to be able to play more man. And he said that basically, but because of our circumstances, because of our personnel, and sometimes, because of the opponent, like you can't play man coverage this week. Not against Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. You can't play man coverage this week, even if you wanted to, right? You may be able to do it next week against the New York Giants. I think Wan'Dale Robinson would kick your ass if you did that, but you could probably get away with it. They don't have anybody that scares you at the receiver position. But you can't do it this week because Justin Jefferson can run back past any of our corners. So he talked about those defensive changes and the impact that they've had. And then he gave us a Jaden Daniels update. Still has not been cleared for contact. However, they are going to ramp up his reps in practice this week. So he will be taking more reps during the course of this week. They do want to continue to prepare him as if he's going to play. My personal opinion is that he's not going to play in this game. I think they're going to be extra precautious with him. And I think they take one extra week. If this were an important game, if this were a playoff game, he'd be playing this week. I believe that he will be cleared for contact probably on Sunday, but not by Friday. And they're going to have a travel day, and he may not go with the team on when they travel on Saturday. I could see him traveling with the team and being up in the press box or even on the sidelines like he was the last time when we went to Kansas City. The bottom line is, I think they're going to hold him out one more week just to be on the safe side. And I think next week against the Giants in the final 4 games of the season against the NFC East opponents, he's going to play out the remainder of the season. And so DQ basically said we will have a better understanding of where we are on Friday. But until then, we're going to continue to give him reps throughout the week, get him more and more comfortable with the game plan in the event that he can play. I'm going to hold out hope that he can play, but my expectation is that we get Marcus Mariota one final time for this season, and then he turns the reins back over to Jaden Daniels, and then he finishes out the season, obviously assuming health. And then I thought this was an interesting way to end the press conference. Ben Standing asked Dan Quinn about Jake Moody's range. There was an opportunity in the game early on to attempt a 57-yard field goal. DQ declined, ultimately opted for the punt. I had no issues with it because Moody's a new kicker, and also you had a new long snapper, and DQ basically said that's exactly why we did that. Now, I don't want Jake Moody's first kick coming in here to be a 57-yarder because if he misses, it's a bad look. You never get a second chance to make a first impression, and fans aren't going to give a shit that it was 57 yards. You send him out there, he misses, they're going to go, here we go again, and then Moody's going to start feeling that pressure of, oh shit, here I go again. So don't put him out there for a 57-yard kick. You got a long snapper that just got here. There were a lot of things going against you in that moment. He made the right decision, but he said, had this been end of the game, end of the half, we would have had no issues putting him out there for 57 yards, which tells you that he's got a big leg, which we knew because he was a 3rd-round pick out of Michigan. We know he has a big leg, and they said they had no issues with him going out there. I want to see him kick something from 52, from 54. eventually and see if we can count on this guy. Because what good is it to have a big leg kicker if you can't rely on him to make big leg kicks, right? So eventually I would like to see Jake Moody, and this is a great opportunity against Minnesota. You're inside, controlled environment. If you drive stalls out at the 38-yard line, it's a 55-yard kick, 56-yard. Send Jake Moody's ass out there. Let's see what he's got. Shit, take the bubble wrap off, and we'll have Tyler Ott back this week. Send him out there. Let's see what he's got. This will be a perfect week to figure out if Jake Moody could be the kicker of the future here in Washington. Like, he's another guy that's, he's going to go into camp next year as our kicker, more likely than not. Unless he's just awful these final 5 games of the season, which I doubt. He's going to go into next season as your place kicker, right? Let's see if he should have competition or not. Let's see if we should be aggressively looking for a kicker next offseason, or if Jake Moody is the guy and we've got and he's young. So this would be the perfect scenario, is that similar to Treylon Burks, maybe Drake Jackson. We'll see what he does when he finally gets healthy, if he ever gets healthy. These are young guys that were high draft picks. Moody, a 3rd-round pick. Jackson, a 2nd-round pick. Burks, a 1st-round pick. And we're not talking 7, 8 years ago. We're talking 2, 3 years ago. So these are guys that can impact this roster for the next 7, 8 years if it works out. Let's figure out if Jake Moody's a part of the solution or if Jake Moody's a part of the problem. So I thought that was an interesting conversation as well. So with that said, we will get to our first look at the Minnesota Vikings here in a second. But before we do that, let's get a word from our sponsor, come back on the other side, and then we will dive into our first look at the Minnesota Vikings. Sleeper is the best way to experience and connect over sports together. It's a one-stop shop for all of your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat in the games in real time with other users, get the fastest scores, blazing fast news and alerts right at your fingertips. Play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports the way they were meant to, together. Download the #1 sports app today. Predict the hottest football stats like passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and much more to cash in on your daily fantasy football skills. Use promo code LTN, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, so now we're taking our first look at the Minnesota Vikings in this upcoming matchup in Week 14. These are 2 really bad football teams on the struggle bus right now. Commanders riding a league-high 7-game losing streak at 3-9. Meanwhile, the Vikings entered this game on a 4-game slide of their own at 4-8. This was one of the 2 of the better teams last year in the NFC. Vikings finished with the 2nd best record in all of football last year. They're at the very bottom of their division right now. The Commanders obviously were the 2nd best team in their division, and one of the better teams in the conference last year. They're 2nd to last in their division. So 2 teams that had high hopes this season with 2nd-year quarterbacks that just haven't found their way this season for various reasons. The Vikings have struggled mightily, not because of their defense. It's still a very good unit, one that is capable of turning a game upside down. We've seen them do it this season to teams, i.e. The Cincinnati Bengals, where they produce like 2 pick sixes, a forced fumble, scoop and score in a single game, beat them up pretty good, scored a bunch of points. That was against a backup quarterback in Cincinnati and Jake Browning. So we've seen them dominate games defensively this season. Just 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, they went to Detroit and beat the Lions with that defense. McCarthy did enough. They ran the football and they scored enough points and they won. So this is a defense very capable of taking control of this game and beating the Commanders if they're not careful. As you see my artwork, I got Jaden Daniels on this artwork, not because I think he's going to play, but because I'm trying to will it into existence. McCarthy's going to play. I'd love for Jaden Daniels to be opposite of him and have those 2 first round quarterbacks from the 2024 draft class doing battle for the first time in their NFL careers. It's highly unlikely in my mind. I think Marcus Mariota is going to get the start for the Commanders, but I'm not going to put him on the graphic until it's been decided that Marcus Mariota is starting. I'm going to continue to preach Jaden Daniels being in the starting lineup because that's what I want to see, and I believe that's what most of you want to see at this point. So hopefully Jaden Daniels is back like cook crack in week number 14 against the Minnesota Vikings. But these are two teams struggling right now. We'll really get into why these two teams are struggling and how the Commanders can win tomorrow as we go behind enemy lines. But just know that this is a very winnable game. The Vikings quarterback situation has been an absolute mess and an abject disaster this season. Carson Wentz was the one stabilizing force there. He got injured and he's out for the season. J.J. McCarthy has been a massive disappointment. He's turned the football over in every single game he's participated in this season, with most of those games having multiple giveaways this season. He's been very erratic. He has been a guy that they have not been able to trust to take care of the football, to move this offense in an efficient manner. They turned the reins over to Max Brosmer, a rookie quarterback, this past week against Seattle. You know that defense is good. We saw it firsthand. They devoured Max Brosmer. He turned it over 4 or 5 times, including just an awful pick six that he threw under duress that you can't do. So the Vikings quarterback situation is just awful right now, but doesn't mean they can't get on track against this defense, right? So we will talk more about this matchup and what the Commanders can and probably have to do to the Minnesota Vikings in order to snap their 7-game losing streak. Someone's losing streak will be over come 4/12 on Sunday afternoon. Will it be the Commanders' 7-game losing streak, or will it be the Vikings' 4-game losing streak? That remains to be seen. So let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. I want to first read the comments from the last stream that had to be stopped prematurely because of my technical difficulties or just my audio being muted. And most of it is you just telling me, dumb, your mic is muted, but I'm still going to read them anyway. Too Proficient TV. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, bruh, you are muted. Thanks. I wish I would have seen that earlier, but yeah. And again, I blame YouTube for all of this. I really do. If my other screen was allowed to have the stream up and running like I normally do, this wouldn't be an issue. And I don't know what's been going on with YouTube's streams all week, but I've been having this problem with them since Monday. So it continues to be an issue, and it bit me in the ass today. Shadow Striker 789. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. This one's really funny. Over 4.5 minutes muted, cashed at plus 175 on a heater. Good one, Shadow Striker 789. I love it. Shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring this stream. Ant-Man 4894. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Lou, you got me dying laughing, sending a super to hopefully cheer you up for being mad about being muted. Never change, Lou. I was pissed off. I'm still a little bit hot about that because my kids are home now. I'm supposed to be giving them a bath. Instead, I'm still doing the video because those 15 minutes or so that I spent rambling to no one but myself, I had to do over, and obviously it's bled into, the time. So I appreciate you sending me a little love, and you did cheer me up. I appreciate that. So you put a smile on my face. Nathan Isakoff, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Mike is not hot. It was not hot. It was definitely cold. And Yeah, I felt like a fool. I felt like an idiot. I did. Jorn, 23. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Jorn, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Nathan Isakoff as well. Writes 10 minutes muted. Damn, Unc. Yeah, man. That was pathetic. That was really, really bad. And I just happened to look down, right? Because you know, when I'm rambling, I'm looking into the camera. I'm not looking at the comments. I'm not looking. But if the super chats would have popped up, I would have seen that. Or normally when the mic's muted, I get a bunch of muted, you're muted, you're muted, muted, and it's like it's spamming the chat. And if I see that in front of me, I'll see that like out of the corner of my eye, and I'll know something's wrong. Well, I don't have that in front of me right now, so. Again, blame YouTube for that. But I should have checked to make sure my mic wasn't muted. So that's on me. It had no reason to be muted though, right? Shadow Striker 789. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes 30 more seconds till the 10-minute mark. That was plus 5,000 odds, Lou. Come on, bro. Just a bit longer. Oh, that is a good one. That is priceless. Shadow Striker 789. Did I hit it? Did I hit the extra 30 seconds at plus 5,000? I'm trying to make somebody some money out here, man. I'm clearly not making myself any money right now. I'm trying to make somebody some bread. Nathan Isakoff, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Boy, we all knew you were on a roll, man. I was going, bro. I had to cut down some of the things that I said because, for one, I was pissed off and I wasn't trying to replicate what I had just done. But two, and I said a lot. And for me to not have been recording that entire time because my mic was muted, you don't know the pain. You have no idea. It could have been worse. It could have been worse. It could have been me rambling on a video that was a recorded video and you guys not telling me, and I could have done the whole thing. And I've done that before. And anybody that's been on YouTube that's recorded videos to upload has done that, where you've gone an entire 30, 40-minute video and you didn't know your mic was muted the entire time. And then you finish and you go to edit and there's no audio. It's the worst feeling ever because you can't replicate that show. And you're going to be mad because you got to do it over again. So it could have been worse. You know, I'm a glass half full guy anyway. Could have been worse, but that's pretty bad. I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty bad because normally you guys inform me within the first 3 to 5 minutes of the show. I was gone for well over, 10 minutes rambling. So yeah, that one was rough. GD 9259. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Right. As a Commanders fan, we must all pray that Pickens leads the Cowboys. If he stays and that defense continues to improve, there will be a problem for a while. He's not going anywhere. At the bare minimum, Jerry Jones is going to franchise tag him, which is what I anticipate happening. I don't see them working out a long-term deal with Pickens because Pickens is going to want more money than CeeDee Lamb. And at the rate that he's performed this season, I don't disagree with that. He's their best receiver this season thus far. He's the go-to guy when they need a big play. They're not looking up CeeDee Lamb. They're looking for George Pickens, and he's going to want to be paid as such. Jerry's going to try to lowball him and tell him he's a number 2 wide receiver, and it's going to turn ugly, but he doesn't hold any power in this situation because the Cowboys can simply franchise tag him, which is exactly what they're going to do. He's going to be pissed, but guess what? He doesn't have a choice, and we'll see how it plays out, but he's not going to be allowed to walk. I can assure you of that. And eventually, Jerry will come to his senses. It'll cost him more because 3 more receivers would have gotten paid and reset the market, and it'll cost the Cowboys more money instead of them doing it sooner. But Jerry eventually will pay him like he always does. He just wants to pay more money when it's all said and done. So, and their defense is getting better, by the way. It is getting better. But I don't concern myself with other people's affairs. How can we get better? Because when it's all said and done, I still think we have the best quarterback in the division. And as long as we have the best quarterback, it gives us a chance if we continue to build the roster around said quarterback. So You know that Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback, or I feel that way. You can't say we know definitively. I feel that way, and you can't change my mind that we have the best quarterback in the division. Now you've got an offensive line that can compete with the Eagles and the Cowboys offensive line as one of the best in the division. Now continue to build. We got a long way to go, but continue to build off of that. And you will continue to chop wood, and you'll find yourself right there in that discussion when it's all said and done. But you got to continue to build this roster, right? Mab 2254. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, say we finish with the top 5 pick. Are you comfortable with trading out for a second if we have a shot at a franchise player? I'm not gonna lie, that's part of the reason I want to win more. I don't know if I could handle that. If we have a chance for one of these blue chip defenders like an Arvell Reese, everyone keeps telling me, I haven't watched this kid. Everyone keeps telling me Arvell Reese is like that. He has a chance to be Micah Parsons. He's one of these generational talents in this draft. If that's true, I don't want to trade out of the pick. Give me Arvell Reese. Give me a guy that gives us. We don't have one of those guys. I've already said this. Everybody in the division has one of those guys. We don't. I want one of those guys. And if you can get one of those guys, then what are we talking about? Just get the guy. We'll figure out the rest of that stuff later. You know, this is what AP gets paid for. Figure it out. Find some gems in the 6th round. Find some day 3 gems. But I'm not looking to acquire more picks to get solid players when we can get an elite player. I want an elite player. So not looking to trade back. You know, if they love 3 or 4, 5 different guys at the same wavelength, like they got a 90 grade on this guy, 89, an 89, an 88, and an 87, and they feel good about all 5 of them. And so trading back 4 spots, they still feel like they're going to get one of these guys. Okay, fine. But again, like they were talking about last night on the Commanders Kings program about the defensive end, the 5 tech, or the defensive tackle, the 3 tech from Clemson. I don't want that. I don't want one of these guys that could be Dietrich Wise. All right. That's not what I'm looking for. Dietrich Wise is going to get you 4.5 sacks on a good year. On a great year, Dietrich Wise could get you 5. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a disruptor, a game changer, a guy that you have to account for and you have to game plan to stop. And if that guy exists at number 4 overall, a number 5 or number 6, get that guy. Don't trade back and get a bunch of guys that are solid, that are good football players when you can get a guy that's a great football player. CGM87, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. CGM87 writes, Lou, do you think DQ is back regardless of last 5? Yeah, DQ's not going anywhere. I don't think he's going to lose the last 5 games of the season anyway. But even if it did happen and then he finished this season with a 12-game losing streak, what would it be? It'd be 12 because we'd finish. No, it'd be, what were we on? A 7-game losing streak right now? It'd be 12. Yeah, it'd be 12. 12-game losing streak. I can't see that happening. Can't see him getting fired regardless. But 12 is nasty, man. Like, it's hard to justify a 12-game losing streak. But I don't see him getting canned either way. Like, I think the powers that be understand the situation. And games like Denver on Sunday night make it, like if the games look like that the remainder of the way and they just don't find ways to win, there definitely won't be a conversation. If he had continued losing like that stretch of games that we had from Dallas to Seattle, or Detroit rather, where you're getting blown out every week and these are non-competitive games, yeah, I think there would have been a conversation about, man, maybe he's lost this team and maybe they need to find new direction. But I don't see that happening. DQ's fine either way. CGM87, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, NFL has to do something about international games. Why should we host an international game and play 8 home games and miss out potentially on a division crown by 1 game when other teams get 3 and a 9th in their stadium. It just happens to be that season, because I believe this season we got the extra home game, or I think this season we didn't get the extra home game. Next season you get the extra home game. And so they'll be taking one of those away if we play on the road or at home in one of those international games. Look, it just is what it is, man. Like, you take care of home when you're home. That's the bottom line. Like, I don't complain about home versus away, because at the end of the day, you know, you can win on the road. We've seen this team win on the road in the past. And, you know, if you don't protect home, it doesn't matter anyway. And we haven't done that this season, hence the Broncos coming in and their fan base being able to take over the stadium and chant during various portions of the game, "Go Broncos," which is embarrassing, you know, but that's where we are, right? Like, I'm not upset about it, because we knew this was going to transpire. It's going to happen against Dallas again on Christmas. It's going to happen again against Philadelphia the week thereafter, you know, for the Christmas or the Saturday game. So, again, this is to be expected. Or yeah, I said that right. No. It's Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles. So it'll happen the week prior against Philadelphia, and then it'll happen again 4 days later again, or 5 days later against the Cowboys on Christmas Day. So it is what it is. You know, just win the games wherever they're played. It doesn't matter. Corin Smith, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, "Sup, Lou? Sup, Corin? How you be, man? Chilling like a villain, and I'm feeling right." Says, "In the past, players would be looking for their next gig. I think they're looking to next season. I'm proud of these boys. Hashtag SOTG." You know, hashtag SOTG, man. Shout out to Gabe. Y'all know what it is. I definitely think that the direction of this team, and I think it was illustrated in that Hard Knocks clip with DQ, you know, addressing the team and telling them, you know, we lost the game, but we are not lost anymore. I think that the leadership that this team has is one that you can win with, which is why I'm all in on DQ and Adam Peters. Obviously, Peters has to do a great job of picking the groceries this offseason and putting this team back in a position where they can compete as early as next year. But I think if he gets DQ the right groceries, DQ can make a hell of a meal, and we can be right back where we were last year, right? Competing at a high level. And I am proud of this team, because this is a tough season, man. We went through it this year. Like, we really did. Right? This season did not go the way any of us planned, and the injuries have just ravaged us. And it's easy to point fingers, and it's easy to fall apart at the seams with a season like this, and they haven't done that. And I think they're going to come out on the other side of this thing down the stretch, these final 5 games. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Braxton White, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Braxton writes, "Hard realizing that if Quinn was to take over the defense earlier when we still had our talent, we would be in a different situation. Your thoughts?" That's the thing that I said when DQ took over initially, right before the Madrid game, is he was in a no-win situation. Because if this team played well defensively after he took over, people would start questioning, well, why didn't you do it sooner? If the defense continued to suffer, then they would say, what good are you? You can't get this defense going. You're supposed to be a defensive-minded guy and a defensive coordinator at heart. So what good are you if you can't fix this defense? Well, he did fix the defense. It's better than what it was before, with less talent, I may add. And by simplifying things and putting guys in better positions to succeed. And yes, playing against lesser competition. We haven't faced an offense like Detroit or like Dallas's or like Kansas City's. So, you know, that helps too when you play Miami and Denver. But still, like I said already, Atlanta's offense isn't on par with those offenses. And guess what? They kicked our ass in week 4 and beat us up good and scored more points than they had before and haven't scored that many since. So again, I don't think it would have mattered if Joe Witt Jr. was calling the defense, to be honest with you. And yes, it sucks knowing that had DQ taken over sooner, maybe we wouldn't have been in the position. But again, would we really have beaten Kansas City? Like, they actually played, okay. I won't say well, okay, against Kansas City. They really created turnovers. That's all they did. They didn't stop Kansas City's offense. They just created turnovers in that game. Once they stopped creating turnovers, they didn't stop Kansas City. They didn't play well against Dallas. They didn't play well against Detroit. They didn't play well against Seattle. Would have it mattered in those games? Maybe. Detroit in particular, maybe, because we were actually moving the ball in that game against Detroit offensively. Seattle, it wouldn't have mattered. Our offense was awful that night. We were terrible that night. It didn't help that our defense was just a sieve, and that it gave no confidence to our offense whatsoever that if they didn't score, that the game was over. But the offense just didn't play well. At least against Detroit, the offense did play well. And maybe if you could have gotten some stops, it could have been a competitive football game. So maybe it would have mattered against Detroit. But ultimately, it is what it is. Like, I wish he would have taken over sooner. We all saw the writing on the wall. We all realized it took me a while, a little bit longer than some of you. I'm not going to sit here and act like I was fired Joe Witt or remove the play calling responsibilities and duties from Joe Witt as soon as trouble started to hit. I was like, no, give him a chance. It's this, that, and the third. And then I realized, no, Joe Witt is the problem here. And by that time, it was probably too late. And it took, after I realized, it probably took Dan Quinn another month before he made a move. And I get that too, right? You don't want to be hasty to relieve guys of their duties. That's your boy. And, you want to at least give him every opportunity before you make a move. He gave him as much opportunity as he could before he had to, finally say, all right, enough's enough. You've had enough. And he had to, throw in the towel, wave his arms and say, all right, man, my fight, give me the mouthpiece. You've had enough, bro. Wish he would have taken over sooner. But again, it's not like we've been losing in shootouts like Cincinnati. I mean, we've been getting our teeth kicked in because our offense wasn't playing well either. So I'm not sure how much of a difference it would have made, but it would have been nice to have seen if this team could have been somewhat competent defensively, what it could have done to the rest of the football team in some of those games. Joshua Farish, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, do you think if Quinn calls the defense that Lattimore could be better? I don't know. I mean, because, again, you're playing zone. I don't think Lattimore is a zone corner. We've talked about this. Marshawn Lattimore is a press corner. He's a man corner. You play off and soft with Lattimore, that is not where he excels. When he picked off Mahomes, he was in press coverage, and he turned back, looked for the football, and took it away. That is when he's at his best. So, no, I don't think this zone-based defense would have benefited Marshawn Lattimore all that much. He would have probably been worse off because of it, to be honest with you, because in those games, like against Green Bay and the Atlanta game, when he was getting cooked and torched, those were the games where he was playing zone and they were playing off and they were playing, with eyes on the quarterback. And so he was giving up, easy completions in front of him. That's not what he excels at. He excels at deleting the airspace, getting in guys' face, and, playing a physical brand of football that often leads to him picking up penalties, but that's who he is. And that's not what they're doing right now. So I don't think this defense that they're playing right now would have benefited him. But also, in the same breath, had Marshawn Lattimore been out there, DQ might have been tempted to play a little bit more man or mix in a little bit more man coverage. He's playing zone out of necessity because of who's out there on the field. So you throw in a Marshawn Lattimore and a Trey Amos, and maybe he's calling a little bit more man coverage. So hard to really say if DQ would have altered his defense with corners that could play some man. I can tell you Marshawn wouldn't thrive in this defense. That's for certain. Club 100 TV, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, do you believe the Ayuk hype? Yes, I do. I believe Ayuk is going to be released. I believe that he's going to make a beeline for Washington. And I believe there is mutual interest between Ayuk's camp and the Commanders. I do believe the hype. Now it's just a matter of, does he get released? And what does the number look like that it's going to take to get him to sign on the dotted line? I think you got to sign him to a one-year deal because you don't know what Brandon Ayuk is. He hasn't played football since week 7 of 2024. So and he's probably not going to play football at all this season. So you've got to sign him to a one-year prove-it deal and make sure that you're getting the right guy, and you're not over investing in a player that you're not sure is gonna, or I mean, maybe you sign him to that same Stephon Diggs 3-year deal that he just got in New England, and so that protects you in the event. Like, it goes both ways. That could protect you in the event that he balls, right? And it turns into a George Pickens situation where you sign him to a 1-year deal. He absolutely lights it up next year, and now you got to pay him big money. To avoid that, you could just give him the Stephon Diggs deal coming off of an injury. We trust you. Here's some good money. And he's already, probably going to still be making some money from the Chiefs or the 49ers, rather, even though they took his guarantees away from him. There's probably still some money in there for him. I would assume, right, that there's going to be some debt. Well, I shouldn't assume, because the guarantees, they took him back. So he's probably going to want a sizable contract. So I don't know what the number looks like, because they did take the guarantees away. So they'll have some dead cap, but that's not going to him. So I do believe the Ayuk hype. I do. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOB. Be my guy. Video channel writes, DQ has won me back over with taking over the DC job. We lost, but we're not lost anymore. Is such a bar. I'm locking in. Hold me to it. It is a bar, and again, DQ is a leader of men. I don't think that was ever in question. The question that we have had is, can DQ maximize the talent that we have, and can he help acquire the talent? Because we know DQ and AP are a tandem. They are a duo when it comes to putting together this roster. While AP has the final say, DQ is usually in on a lot of those matters. He tries to act as if, that's Adam Peters and his group's specialty, but he's in there on those meetings. He's in, like, he's giving a thumbs up on guys, or I'm good on that guy. So can they find a way to get players in here that aren't just good guys, that are high character individuals who do it the right way? Can they find some guys that are just supremely talented and gifted, and say, DQ, your job is to take this guy that's a little rough around the edges and get him to produce on the field, and also help him to grow as a man? Can they do that? Will they be willing to do that? That's the question. But DQ, he never lost me. I was just disappointed, as any fan would be in a season that has been lost like this one is. But I can't ignore what happened last year. I won't ignore what happened last year. This team did things that we haven't seen them do in a very long time, and for some, ever. And I can't just ignore that. And so I know they're capable. Now they just got to find a way to make it sustainable. Do it again, and then make it sustainable. Become a triple P. Let's see if they can do that. I think they can. The question is, will they be able to do that? It starts with winning. They got to start by winning first. See if they can get that done. Anyway, I digress. That's the final super chat. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys a little bit later on tonight. I'll have Candy Waller of Bowie TV, who covers the team, here live with me for Seawall Wednesdays. We'll catch up with Candy, see what's going on in her neck of the woods, and get up to speed on how she feels about the latest developments of this team. We'll ask her about Jaden Daniels. We'll ask her about Brandon Ayuk. We'll ask her about Hard Knocks. We'll ask her about everything that has to do with this team and the things that she's seen and what she forecasts for this team moving forward. So That'll be all encapsulated in tonight's show. Hopefully, you'll be able to carve out some time for us and join us tonight, as we will be live for Seawall Wednesdays tonight. In any event, that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys, as I mentioned, later on tonight. If not, I'll see you guys tomorrow for Commanders Nightly News. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T. Hold on a second. We have one more comment. This one is from Darnell Kelly. Been a member for 50 months. Celebrate! My guy Darnell writes, I'll take Terry, Brandon, Burks, Luke, and Lane at receiver and feel comfortable, if healthy, of course. Get K9 or Hall as RB1. Build a spell. J-Mac is third down back. With this line, will be good on offense. I think you need another receiver in there. I'm not comfortable with Terry, Brandon, and Burks as your top three options. You insert a receiver either between Terry and Brandon or Brandon and Burks, and you got me, right? I just don't trust Traylon Burks yet to stay healthy and produce at a high enough level to make me comfortable with him as the third option. And we still don't know what Brandon Ayuk is coming off the injury. You need another guy. I'm not comfortable with Burks or Brandon Ayuk at this point, enough to say, yeah, we just going to go into the season. That's the trap we fell into last offseason. I'm not willing to fall into that trap again. You got to go get another guy. And if you get Ayuk, then it should be a draft pick. If you don't get Ayuk and let's say you bring back Debo, then it should be a draft pick, right? If you bring back Debo and you sign Brandon Ayuk, then you don't have to do anything in the draft. I wouldn't love that necessarily, but I would understand it. If you brought back Debo, and then you could push off receiver for one more year. That's what you would effectively be able to do. I don't think any of us are necessarily rooting for that outcome because we want a young guy in the room, but you also have to understand we don't have a second round pick. That's probably ideally where you would get the receiver is in the second round this year. Of course, you could end up, in a position where the receiver falls to you, all the edge rushers are gone in the first round. You're drafting 7th overall and Carnell Tate is sitting there. I think you would take him, right? So, again, we'll see. Ultimately, where we end up in the draft will determine a lot. And, what we do in this offseason might determine what direction they go in as well. So, we'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully, you spend some of it with me later on as I chop it up with Candy Waller. If not, I'll see you guys tomorrow. In any event, you guys take care. Have a good one. God bless. Good night.
Here comes the diesel. There's the snap. Hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.